All right, welcome Mingus Welding students. We're gonna do a quick, like 5-part video series on how to make these cool little sheet metal toolboxes. I think these are a fun little project for you guys because they kind of teach you about a bunch of different concepts that we use in welding and fabrication, plus you get to learn how to use some of the pieces of equipment. So the first step is gonna be taking this flat piece of sheet metal and making it into the bottom of the box. And you'll notice that this is bent into 3 places with some wings on the side so that we can put the ends in. So we're gonna go walk you through this part first. All right, so here if we look at our directions here, we're gonna work on this piece here. And the first thing we wanna do is create this 1/2-inch border around the outside of our piece of material. And it's only on 3 sides, 1, 2, 3 sides. So the easiest way I find to do this is to use a ruler and a Sharpie, and to make sure it's a good Sharpie with a good point on it, because the more accurately you make your marks and your measurements, the better this is gonna come out. And so we wanna start up here at the top, and we'll start over here. Even though we're at 24, we can still measure a 1/2 inch in, and we're just gonna put a little mark here, okay? We're gonna do the same thing on this end over here. We'll come in, we're gonna start at the 9.5. We can come into the 10, and that's still a 1/2 inch mark. Then the next thing we wanna do is we wanna come down the side over here, and we wanna measure in, but we only need to do it on one end. We only wanna do it on one side. So pick a side, call this side the top, or front actually is what it is, but then we'll mark it up here as a 1/2 inch. Okay, and then we're going to come over to this side and do the same thing. We'll mark the 1/2 inch here. Okay, and then what we need to do is we need to be able to carry this 1/2 inch measurement all the way down this side. So we want to come down here and make another 1/2 inch mark on both sides. So if we take our ruler down here, we can make our 1/2 inch here, and then we can make another 1/2 inch mark on this side. And then once you've got your 1/2 inch marks, all we need to do is connect them. And when you're doing this kind of stuff, you'll notice that I'm putting my marks right out on the edge of the material, not way in here. It's much easier to make an accurate mark if you're right on the edge of your material. Okay, so now that we've got those marked out, so we've got our 1/2 inch border all the way around, and what that does is it creates these parts that we're gonna bend over to create the lip to put the end in the toolbox. The next thing we need to do is we need to figure out where our bend lines are gonna come in. And so we've got to bend, these dotted lines on here are our bends. So we've got to bend here, 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 and on the sides as well. Our 1/2 inch mark up here is a bend line, so we can use this as one of our bend lines, but then we need to put in 2 more. And the top one, this one here, if you carry out over here to the dimensions, we come in a 1/2 inch, and then we're gonna measure 2 5/8 of an inch from our 1/2 inch mark. So we need to come in 2 5/8 from this mark down here to create our first bend line. And we're gonna have to do that on both ends so we can transfer it across. So we go down 2 inches from our bend line. So here we'll start 1, 2, and we're gonna go to 1/2 and then to the 5/8. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the other end. So we're 1, 2, 1/2, and then 5/8. And again, you'll notice I'm putting them right out on the edge of the material, so that makes it easier to follow. And then once we've got it, we'll transfer that mark all the way across the material. You can do it as a dotted line or you can do it as a solid line. You need to remember whether you're cutting or bending on those lines. All right, so our next bend line is 2 5/8 from the bottom edge of the material. So we're gonna measure from the bottom edge here up 2 5/8 to create our next bend line. All right, so there we've got our bends laid out. We've got 2 of our cuts, because we're actually gonna cut off this corner and we're gonna cut off this corner, okay? But we also need to create the little notches that go here. You can't really see them in here, but we need to notch these points here so that when we bend them and fold them, they don't kink up and mess each other up. So you'll notice we have these little V notches right here on the ends, and it tells us over here how wide they are. So they're 1 inch wide. We just take our ruler and we're gonna measure, okay, and this is important, make sure you do this the right way. We're gonna measure a 1/2 inch on either side of this line to make this mark. So we're gonna come out, here's a 1/2, okay, and then here's a 1/2. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect that mark to our cross point here to create our V notch. So I'll just do this one real quick. So we'll make that over and do the same thing this way and down. Okay, so now we've got our V notch, and we're gonna cut this part out of the toolbox. So I'm gonna do the other 4 real quick, and then we'll come back ready to cut these pieces out of the way. So we've got our notches cut, so we're gonna cut. We wanna cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cuts. And even though we call these a V, they're all 90-degree cuts, so they're all just square corners that we're gonna cut out of this material. There's 3 ways that we can really do this in this shop. One is with a pair of handheld shears, okay? And these work just like scissors for metal, and they work fairly well, as long as they're in decent shape. But you wanna go as far into the throat of the shear as you can, just like you would with a pair of scissors. And then you're just gonna cut on either side. And you wanna try and make sure you're using the right ones. We have red, green, and yellow handles. The red handles are the ones for making straight cuts. The yellow handles and green handles are for curving left and then making right-handed curved cuts. Okay, so there's one way we can cut it. The other one is we have one of these, and this is a little notcher. You can see a little mouth there. That makes a 90-degree corner cut. And it's fairly easy to use. So you just put it up here. You have to look down in the opening and line up your cut with the edges of the blade. And the more time you spend to try to line this up nice, the better it's gonna come out. Make sure you don't have your fingers in there. Okay, and then you just squeeze and it makes a cut for you. And you'll notice I try to line up and split my line when I'm making my cuts. So this tool right here is a corner notcher made for notching corners, and it's got the same kind of cutter, it's just much larger. This is the cutting blade right here. So it's got a blade right here, and then the other blades are down below. This is a guard to keep you from putting your fingers in there. So when you line up your metal, so we're gonna look down in there, we're gonna try to line it up. Now we pull down on this handle here, and what I like to do is kind of rest the handle on my shoulder while I let it get down nice and close so I can get my cut lined up. Looks like we're pretty lined up. And then all you do is you just push down on the handle and it makes the cut for you. So you can see how it made our nice little square cut. We'll just go ahead and do this other 2 real quick. Okay. So there, now we've got all of our notches made. So we're ready to bend these, and this is the tool right here that we're gonna use. This machine here, and then we have a bigger one over there on that table. This is called a box and pan brake, okay? And it's got this piece here that's got these fingers on it, and we can take these out and move them so that we can bend boxes or pans, and that's what we're gonna do. And so if you look here, there's a lever here that lifts the brake up and down. And you have to make sure it's locked all the way down, and then you've got a lever here that pulls up on the leaf to make your bends. All right, so you'll see now it's got some teeth missing, some of the fingers are missing, and what we wanted to do was set it up so that we could make the bends without the outside edges hitting, and you'll see once I get to those points why that is. So first bend is this top edge. This top bend, and what that is called a hemmed edge. So we're actually going to take that bend and we're going to fold it all the way over against itself to create a nice rounded edge, but without having a sharp edge on it. All right, so this hemmed edge is just like the hem on the edge of your t-shirt, where the material's folded over and sewed back against itself. So first thing we want to do is we want to pull this little lever down over here so that we can get our fingers down where we want them to be. And we're going to line them up on our line here. One thing about these tools is they usually clamp one side to the other, and this one starts over here and then clamps over here. So it might be tight here, but you can still wiggle this side to get it lined up. So sometimes that makes it easier to get it to line up where you want it to be. So we're gonna take our piece and line it up in here. And again, like our cuts, we're trying to kind of split right on our Sharpie mark. So once we got it where we want it, we want to push all the way down on this lever right here and make sure it's locked in place so that our material doesn't move. And then we're ready to bend. And this one is the only one we're going to bend past 90 degrees. We're going to take this one pretty much as far as we can bend it. So there's a bar here, we'll pull up, and we're going to bend it all the way over as far as we can and make it go. So the next step to create this hemmed edge, we're going to pull it out. You can see how far it's bent here. And we want to compress this and squeeze it closed. And the easiest way I've found to do this is just to take it, put it back in here, and line it up, and just use the machine, the leverage in the handle to push it down. So if you'll notice right down in here, there's a back edge to these fingers. So there's a back edge to them, okay? And I'm trying to line up so the edge of the box is just beyond that back edge. So it's like a little step, and it's pushing down on the hemmed edge. So now that we've got our hemmed edge done, we'll pull it out, and you'll see how that's folded over, and it creates so we don't have a sharp edge on the front edge of our toolbox. So now the next bends we need to do are these ones. Okay, so we want to bend this side up. If you do these first, you're not going to be able to bend these because they need to be bent when the box is in the flat position. Now, one of the things we want to watch is we don't want this hemmed edge to get smashed in the box. So we're gonna try to make sure this comes off the end of the break down here and off here when we bend the other side so that we don't smash them. So we're gonna put this in here, and we're actually gonna hang the edge of the box off just a little bit. You'll notice I'm hanging the edge, the hemmed edge, off the end of the finger so that when we bend it, it's not going to crinkle up against the toe of the die. So we'll line it up, okay? And this one we're going to bend to 90 degrees. And now 90-degree bends, you kind of have to go a little bit and check it, go a little bit and check it. It's always easier to add more bend than it is to try to take bend out of a piece of material. When you try to unbend the metal, metal has a memory, and when you try to unbend it, it kind of messes it up, it crinkles it. So we're gonna go a little bit, we're gonna let off and check, and go a little further, let it off and check, and then we're gonna go just a little bit more, and it looks like we're pretty close to our 90-degree bend. And so we can pull this out, and you look at it and you can see that now we have a 90-degree bend on the end of our box. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side, but this one, again, we're gonna have to position this finger, or this bend, off the finger a little bit so we don't tear it up. So now we're going to do these two bends. And now you can see why we had to put these notches in here, because if we tried to bend these and this was one piece, it would just mess this all up. So now we're going to put it back in the break, and now you'll see why we have to move these fingers, because now we want these edges to slide inside like this. All right, so now we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to line it up as nicely as we can. Try to kind of split the difference on your marks, and then we bend it. So now this one, if you go bend too far, these are gonna smash into each other, and it's gonna make kind of a mess out of them. Okay, so there we got the first one. So there's our end. See how it lines up nice and sharp? Same thing on the other end. So now we'll do this side. All right, so there's the first step to making the bottom of your box. The next thing we got to do is we got to cut our end pieces to go in the box and make the shape for the end of the toolbox, and then we're going to spot weld them into these ends. But we'll do that in the next video.